Black single dad helped a stranded woman, not knowing she was the judge who held his fate. Before we dive in, remember to hit that subscribe button and let me know your city in the comments. Enjoy the story time. The windshield wipers beat their monotonous rhythm against the glass, and Devon's eyes burned with exhaustion. Another 16-hour shift at the loading dock complete. Another day of scanning boxes, hauling freight, moving without pause. Because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant confronting the date marked in red ink on their refrigerator calendar. 21 days. 3 weeks until the hearing that would decide whether he ever tucked his daughter into bed again. Through the downpour, amber hazard lights flickered weakly on the shoulder of Riverside Drive. A sleek silver sedan sat disabled, the kind of vehicle that cost more than Devon would earn in half a decade. A woman stood beside it, one hand clutching her phone, her posture radiating frustration and vulnerability. Devon's foot eased off the accelerator. His battered Honda slowed. "Keep moving," the exhausted voice in his head whispered. "She has insurance, money, people who can help." But something in the way her shoulders trembled, whether from cold or desperation, he couldn't tell, made his chest tighten. His grandmother's words echoed through his mind, as clear as if she still sat beside him. "Character isn't what you do when life is easy, Devon. It's what you do when everything's crumbling around you." Everything was crumbling. Garrett Pierce. The name left a bitter taste. 6 months ago, $47,000 had vanished from their modest landscaping business accounts. 6 months ago, Garrett had looked Devon straight in the eye and accused him of theft. 6 months ago, Devon's world had imploded. The worst part, Garrett had been convincing. The manipulated financial records, the forged signatures, the fabricated email chain, all of it pointed directly at Devon. And Garrett had superior lawyers, powerful connections, every advantage. "The evidence is damaging," his court-appointed attorney, Ms. Brennan, had told him last week, her sympathetic eyes almost unbearable. "I believe you're innocent, Devon, but proving it, that's going to be extremely difficult." A conviction meant up to 5 years. 5 years of watching Maya grow up through prison glass. 5 years of his 9-year-old daughter shuttled through foster homes because her mother had walked away when she was 3, leaving only a note that read, "I can't do this anymore." The thought of Maya, with her gap-toothed smile and her habit of putting her shoes on the wrong feet, alone in the system made Devon's stomach turn. His Honda rolled to a stop behind the silver sedan. Rain slammed into him the moment he stepped out, instantly soaking through his damp work clothes. He raised both hands as he approached, ensuring visibility, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The woman turned, and even through the curtain of rain, he saw her body tense. Fear. Of course she was afraid. A strange black man approaching on a deserted road at midnight. "Ma'am," he called out, maintaining several feet of distance, both hands clearly visible. "You okay? Having car trouble?" She hesitated, assessing him. Water streamed down her face, her clothes completely drenched. Then, as if making a decision, she nodded. "It just died, won't turn over." Her voice was steady despite the circumstances, controlled and professional, the kind of voice accustomed to being heard, to commanding respect. "Mind if I take a look?" Devon asked. "I'm not a mechanic, but I've kept enough old cars running to maybe help." Another pause, then, "Please, I'd appreciate it." She released the hood and Devon stepped forward. Rain hammered the back of his neck as he leaned over the engine. For a moment, he welcomed the distraction. This problem he might actually solve. This problem didn't involve lawyers and courtrooms and the terror in his daughter's eyes. His fingers traced wires and connections. Within minutes, he'd located it. "Your battery terminal's loose," he called over the rain's roar. "Probably got jarred by a pothole. You have any tools?" "No, I don't think so." Devon jogged back to his Honda, water streaming down his face, and retrieved his toolkit from the trunk. As he worked, tightening the connection, cleaning corrosion from the terminal with an old rag, he found himself talking, filling the silence the way he did when Maya couldn't sleep. "This battery's on its last legs," he said, his fingers working despite the cold. "You should replace it soon. There's a gas station about 2 miles up with batteries in stock." He could feel her watching him. Even in the rain and darkness, he registered her face, the sharp intelligence in her eyes, the way she carried herself with quiet authority despite being stranded and soaked. She was the kind of woman who commanded boardrooms, he could tell, the kind who made decisions that mattered. The connection clicked into place. Devon straightened, wiping rain from his eyes. "Try it now." She slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life. The relief transforming her features was immediate and genuine. "How much do I owe you?" She was already reaching for her purse. Devon shook his head, backing toward his car. "Just glad I could help, ma'am." "Wait, at least tell me your name so I can thank you properly." He turned back, rain streaming down his face, and for a moment their eyes met fully. He saw gratitude there and something else, a kind of respect, as if she was seeing something in him that most people missed. "Devon," he said, too tired to be cautious, too close to the hearing to care any more. "Devon Carter." "Thank you, Devon Carter," she said, her voice warm despite the cold. "You might have saved my night." If only you knew, he thought, climbing back into his Honda. If only you knew you might have been helped by a man the world thinks is a thief. He pulled away, watching her hazard lights disappear in his rearview mirror. He'd never asked her name. In 3 weeks, none of this would matter anyway. He was wrong about that. 3 weeks later, Devon sat in Cook County Criminal Court, wearing a borrowed suit from Ms. Brennan because he couldn't afford to buy one. His hands were clammy, his heart racing so fast he thought he might collapse. This was it, the moment that would determine whether he tucked Maya in tonight or spent the next 5 years watching her grow up from behind bars. Ms. Brennan sat beside him, organizing papers with practiced efficiency. But Devon could see the worry in her eyes. They both knew how this looked. They both knew what happened to people like Devon when they went up against people like Garrett. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Rebecca Hammond," the bailiff announced. Devon stood on trembling legs, his eyes fixed on the floor. He couldn't bring himself to look up, couldn't bear to see the face of the person who held his entire future in their hands. But something made him glance up, maybe instinct, maybe fate. The judge entered, black robes flowing, her posture commanding and authoritative as she took her seat behind the bench. Devon's breath caught in his throat. Wait. He knew that face, those eyes, that way of carrying herself with quiet authority. His mind flashed back. The rainy night, the woman beside the silver car, the gratitude in her eyes when he'd fixed her battery terminal. No, it couldn't be. But the more he stared, the more certain he became, and the more impossible it seemed. The woman he'd helped 3 weeks ago was now sitting behind that bench, holding a gavel that would determine his fate. His heart hammered in his chest. Was he imagining this? The lighting was different now, harsh fluorescent instead of darkness and rain. She was in formal robes instead of soaked clothes. Her hair was pulled back severely instead of wet and loose around her face. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe his desperate mind was seeing connections that didn't exist, grasping for hope in impossible places. But those eyes, the shape of her face, the way she held herself. Devon's hands gripped the edge of the table. He wanted to say something, to ask, to confirm. But how could he? What would he even say? "Excuse me, Your Honor, did I fix your car 3 weeks ago?" He glanced at Ms. Brennan, but his attorney was focused on her notes, completely unaware of the storm raging inside Devon's head. The judge, Judge Hammond, the bailiff had said, was looking down at the case file, her expression neutral and professional. If she recognized him, she gave no sign. Not a flicker of acknowledgement, not a hint of familiarity. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe he was losing his mind. The proceedings began, and Devon tried to focus, tried to listen to the prosecutor's opening statements and Ms. Brennan's responses. But his mind kept returning to that face behind the bench. It looked like her. It really looked like her. But how could it be? What were the odds? Throughout the hearing, Devon found himself stealing glances at Judge Hammond, trying to be certain, trying to reconcile the desperate woman in the rain with this stern figure of authority. Every time he looked, he was more convinced, and every time he told himself he had to be wrong. Then something happened that made his heart stop. The prosecutor was presenting photocopied financial documents, and Judge Hammond leaned forward, her eyes sharp as she examined them. "Mr. Patterson, these are photocopies. Where are the originals?" Devon's breath caught. It was her. It had to be her. But she never looked at him, never gave any sign that she knew who he was. Her face remained perfectly neutral, perfectly professional as she questioned the prosecutor about the evidence. "I have serious concerns about these documents," she said firmly. "This court will not proceed based on photocopies of photocopies. Ms. Brennan, I'm granting your motion for forensic examination. We'll reconvene when we have properly authenticated documents." The gavel came down with a sharp crack, and Devon flinched. As the courtroom began to clear, Devon remained seated, his mind reeling. Ms. Brennan was talking beside him, explaining what had just happened, how unusual it was, how fortunate they were. But Devon barely heard her. His eyes were on Judge Hammond as she gathered her files and disappeared into her chambers. Was it her? Had the woman he'd helped in the rain just saved him right back? Or was his desperate mind playing tricks on him, creating hope where there was none? He wanted to believe. He wanted so badly to believe. But he couldn't be sure, and that uncertainty would haunt him for the next 2 weeks. Rebecca Hammond leaned against her chamber's door, her hands trembling as she pressed them flat against the wood. Her heart was racing, her mind spinning with the magnitude of what had just happened. Devon Carter, the man who'd stopped in the pouring rain to help her, the man who'd refused payment, smiled wearily and told her his name before disappearing into the night. She'd seen the recognition in his eyes when she'd entered the courtroom, watched him do a double take, watched confusion and hope and uncertainty flash across his face. He suspected, but he wasn't sure. And she'd given him no confirmation, kept her face perfectly neutral. Because to acknowledge it, to show any sign that she knew him, would be grounds for immediate recusal. And if she recused herself, this case would go to Judge Morrison. Rebecca pressed her fingers to her temples. She'd just bent every ethical rule in the book. She'd used her position to demand evidence examination that should have been done months ago. She'd fought for a defendant she had personal contact with. But what choice did she have? Let an innocent man go to prison because the system was too lazy to do its job properly. She'd seen the evidence, seen how flimsy it was, how circumstantial, how easily it could be torn apart with proper examination. But Judge Williams had been too busy to care, had denied the forensic examination because it cost money and time. Devon Carter was being railroaded, and the only person who could stop it was someone who should have recused herself the moment she'd seen his name. Sometimes justice required impossible choices. She just hoped she was making the right one. 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Devon went through the motions, working warehouse shifts, picking up Maya, reading bedtime stories, and pretending everything was fine. But every night he lay awake wondering if he was imagining connections that didn't exist. Was the judge the woman from the rain? Had she recognized him? "Daddy, you're thinking too loud," Maya mumbled one night. "It's keeping me awake. Is it the court thing?" "Yeah, sorry, sweetheart. Mrs. Park says judges are fair. She says they help good people." I hope so, Maya. The forensic accountant's report arrived on Tuesday. Ms. Brennan called Devon at work, her voice shaking. Devon, the report is everything we needed. The digital records prove Garrett fabricated the embezzlement. You're going to be okay. Devon's legs gave out. He collapsed onto a stack of boxes, tears streaming down his face. Judge Hammond wanted to reconvene immediately. Tomorrow, he would know the truth. After careful examination of the evidence, Judge Hammond announced from the bench, her voice absolute, this court finds the prosecution's case is built on fraudulent documents. The records conclusively demonstrate that Garrett Pierce committed the embezzlement. Mr. Carter, all charges are dismissed with prejudice. The courtroom erupted, but Devon heard none of it, his vision blurred with tears. Free. Furthermore, Judge Hammond continued, cutting through the noise, I am referring this case to the district attorney with a strong recommendation that charges be filed against Garrett Pierce for fraud and obstruction of justice. The gavel fell. Devon looked up, and for a fraction of a second their eyes met. He knew instantly it was her. She had known who he was from the start and had fought for him. Before he could process it, she vanished into her chambers with professional efficiency. Ms. Brennan was hugging him, discussing compensation, but Devon barely heard. He wanted to thank the judge, but how could he approach her to ask if she was the woman whose car he'd fixed in the rain? It seemed impossible. He left the courthouse with freedom in his hands and questions in his heart. 6 weeks passed. Devon found a better job at a hardware store with benefits and better hours. He was home for dinner every night, and Maya's drawings of Daddy being free covered the fridge. Life was better than he had imagined, yet something nagged at him. He had never properly thanked the judge or confirmed his suspicion. He was restocking automotive supplies when a voice behind him asked, "Excuse me, do you know where I might find battery terminals?" Devon turned. There she was, no robes, just jeans and a sweater, standing in the hardware store with a slight smile. "It's you," he breathed, dropping a box of windshield wipers. "I knew it. In the courtroom I wasn't sure, but I knew." Her smile widened. "You recognized me." "How could I not, but I thought maybe my mind was playing tricks." He stepped closer. "You knew too, the whole time." "From the moment I saw your photo in the case file. The coffee mug I was holding hit the floor." "But you couldn't say anything." "If I had acknowledged it, I would have had to recuse myself. Your case would have gone to Judge Morrison." Devon understood immediately. "And Judge Morrison would have convicted me." "Almost certainly," she said. "He has a 96% conviction rate. So yes, I risked my career. I broke ethical guidelines, but I'd do it again." They stood amidst paint cans and extension cords, the moment heavy with significance. "Why?" Devon asked. "Why risk so much for a stranger you met once in the rain?" "Because that meeting told me everything about your character. A man who stops in the pouring rain to help a stranger, using his own tools and refusing payment. That is a man of integrity. I couldn't watch an innocent man go to prison because the system was too lazy to check the evidence." Tears stung Devon's eyes. "You saved my life. You saved my daughter." "You helped me first," Rebecca replied softly. "You had every reason to keep driving that night. You were exhausted and worried about your trial, but you stopped. You showed me real human goodness." "I never even learned your name that night." "I know. You gave me yours, but I never offered mine." "Would things have been different if I had?" "Maybe, but maybe everything happened exactly as it was supposed to." She paused, smiling. "There's something else. During the trial, you brought your daughter. She gave the bailiff a drawing for me." Devon laughed, a genuine sound of relief. "She thinks your gavel is magic. She tells everyone the nice lady with the magic hammer saved her daddy." "I'd love to see more of her drawings," Rebecca said, her professional mask slipping to reveal vulnerability. "Maybe over coffee, if that's allowed now." "It's allowed," Devon said, voice thick with emotion. I'd like that a lot. That Saturday, Devon brought Maya to the cafe. Maya had spent the morning organizing her art and dressing in her powerful purple princess dress. When she spotted Rebecca, she practically vibrated. "Daddy, it's the magic hammer lady," Maya squealed, dragging him forward. Rebecca stood, her face lighting up as Maya approached. "Hi, I'm Maya," she announced, thrusting a drawing at Rebecca. "That's you with your magic hammer and a cape because superheroes need capes." "Obviously," Rebecca agreed, unrolling the art with care. "This is beautiful, Maya." "I know, I'm really good at art and eating waffles." Maya climbed into the chair opposite her. "Do they have waffles?" Over hot chocolate and coffee, the conversation flowed easily. Maya entertained them with dramatic stories about her stuffed animals. Suddenly, she asked, "Are you going to be Daddy's girlfriend? Mrs. Park says you're pretty and Daddy needs a girlfriend because he's been sad for too long." Devon turned bright red. "Maya." "What? I agree. You're pretty and have a magic hammer, best combination ever." Rebecca's eyes danced with amusement. "Your dad and I are going to be friends first. We'll see what happens." "Okay," Maya said, "but I make excellent friendship bracelets. I'll use the best colors." As Maya explained her bracelet techniques, Devon caught Rebecca's eye. She smiled warmly, and he realized this felt natural, like they had been heading toward this moment since the rain. The universe had taken him to the edge, but it had given him a second chance and a woman who believed in him. Sometimes, kindness returns in ways you never expect. The coffee dates flowed into a warm, surprising rhythm. They shared simple truths, mutual love for classic films, shared incompetence in the kitchen, and the quiet, heavy weight of losing parents young. On their fourth outing at the zoo, Maya's purple jacket was a flash of color against the winter gray. "Daddy, hold Miss Rebecca's hand so she doesn't get lost," Maya commanded, running ahead. "It's okay," Rebecca said softly, slipping her hand into Devon's. Her warmth instantly calmed the frantic hammering of his heart. "For safety reasons." "Right, safety," he agreed, the fit of their hands feeling startlingly, perfectly meant to be. 3 months in, dinners alone became a chance to share deeper hopes and fears. One evening, after hours of conversation, Devon walked her to her car. "Can I tell you something that might scare you away?" Rebecca asked, leaning on the silver sedan. "Anything." "When I saw your name on the docket, I was terrified. Not by the ethics, but because you had already shown me a thing I thought was extinct, pure, uncomplicated human goodness. You were exhausted, facing trial, but you stopped anyway to help a stranger. You refused payment. I knew instantly, this is someone worth fighting for." Devon's eyes stung. "You risked everything for me." "I risked my career," she corrected. "You risked your daughter. What I did was the minimum justice required. What you did that night was character." He kissed her then, careful, soft, and bursting with promise. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. "Maya will demand a full report," he predicted. "Tell her there were fireworks," Rebecca murmured. "The best kind." A year and 3 months later, Devon planned a flawless sunset proposal. He'd chosen a ring that sparkled like her laughter. The plan was perfect, except for Maya's inability to keep a secret. They were walking to his chosen spot when Maya, who was supposed to be with Mrs. Park, exploded from behind a tree. "Are you going to ask her to marry us yet? The ring is burning a hole in your pocket, Daddy." Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with shock and delight. Devon glared at his bouncing, unrepentant daughter, but Rebecca was laughing and crying simultaneously. He got down on one knee right there, strangers gathering, phones out. "Rebecca Hammond," he said, pulling the box out with shaking hands. "You saved my life. You saw me when I was invisible. You looked at my rusty toolkit and saw character instead of poverty. You looked at my enthusiastic daughter." "I'm not chaos, I'm enthusiastic," Maya interjected. My enthusiastic daughter, Devon corrected, fighting a smile, and you fell in love with us both. You've made us whole. Will you marry us? Say yes, my flower girl dress is purple, Maya urged. Tears streamed down Rebecca's face as she smiled. Yes, yes to both of you, all of you forever and ever. Maya tackled her with a celebratory hug. I knew it. Mrs. Park owes me $5. You bet on this? Devon asked, slipping the ring onto her finger. Insider information, Maya declared, waving to the small, applauding crowd. I'm basically a professional matchmaker. The spring wedding was simple and perfect. Mrs. Park wept. Devon's former public defender, Ms. Brennan, toasted their cosmic justice. Maya, 10 3/4, skipped down the aisle in purple. When the officiant asked for objections, Maya stage whispered, If anyone says anything, I'll fight them. I know 4 karate moves. The laughter was instant, joyful. Devon vowed to keep fixing things with hope. Rebecca vowed to embrace the beautiful chaos of his enthusiastic daughter. They exchanged rings. This is the best thing I ever did, Maya confided to Mrs. Park. During their first dance, Rebecca whispered against his shoulder, I broke so many ethical guidelines for you. Was it worth it? She looked over at Maya, who was attempting to teach the serious Ms. Brennan how to do the worm on the dance floor. Every single violation, she confirmed, kissing him. Later, during a family dance, Maya looked up at them with unusual seriousness. I'm really happy, the happiest I've ever been. Me too, Devon said, voice thick. Me three, Rebecca echoed, pulling them close. Good, because now I have a mom who knows the law and a dad who fixes cars. I'm going to run the world someday. Also, can we get a dog now? We'll talk about it, they chorused. Devon had believed his story ended in ruin. Rebecca had believed the rules were always the path to right. They were both wrong. The justice Devon was denied was delivered by one remarkable woman with a conscience. The rules Rebecca lived by bent to allow for mercy and human connection. Maya gained a mother who taught her that strength and kindness are not exclusive, and a father who proved character always matters. They became the family none of them had known they were missing. We all have the power to stop in the rain. We all have magic hammers in our hands, if we are brave enough to use them for good.